Okay, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I'm at the Wilson Center in Washington, D.C. We just wrapped up a round table talking about our experience here on the trip as a Manitoba delegation and engaging with some thought leaders, people from the think tank world, some corporate folks as well too, and some students. So nice to hear the youth perspective. That caps off a busy day. Earlier today, I met with the Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, so a member of the Trump cabinet, as well as congresspeople from some of our neighboring states. And this has been, I guess, the last full day here in DC for what has been a very busy week. I feel like I've spent a month here this past week in DC. Of course, during that time, we met with union leaders, the United Steelworkers in particular, from both the U.S. and Canada. We've met with people from the Congress, senators, and people in the House, people who are part of the Trump administration, like Mr. Burgum, Secretary Burgum, as well as people who are out and about in town here, influential people, if you will, business leaders, thought leaders, and the like. So Manitoba's relationship with the United States of America is in a better place, I feel like, after the time we've spent here. We certainly are going to have to continue to manage this relationship. One of the important things that we heard while we were down here is that you're going to have to come back, some of our American hosts told us. And I think it shows that friendship that we have across the 49th parallel is so important. We know that we're always going to stand up for our jobs and for Canadian values and for the province of Manitoba. And this relationship is one that we're going to have to keep nurturing. And we're just going to have to ride the wave. There's been, I think, a really good response to the efforts that we've shown on the border and on fentanyl. And of course, when it comes to the trade side, we made the case strongly that we shouldn't have tariffs when it comes to the relationship with Canada. So all in all, a very productive week, a very busy week, but an important week that we spent here in DC. And happy to take questions, but of course the focus that we've had is in standing up for Manitoba and strengthening our friendship with the United States of America.
Thank you, sir. We have a number of reporters on the line. We'll start with one question, one follow-up from the Brandon Sun, Abiola Adutola.
Yeah, thank you very much. So my first question is, I'd like to know what specific commitment or reassurance did you receive from the U.S. officials, most importantly with the Secretary of Interior you had a meeting with, regarding, the impact of or regarding the tariff, in a month's time that would affect, Manitoba industries? That's my first question.
Well, thank you for the question. The relationship with Secretary Burgum is an important one to me, and I'm trying to build that relationship. So in terms of the conversation we have, I think I'll just describe it at a high level. And so we talked a lot about energy and critical minerals and some of his priorities. And of course, we touched on the tariffs and the border, and really just building a strong relationship. For me, it's important that we have somebody in the Trump administration who knows where Manitoba is on a map. And the fact that we have that good friendship across the border, and we now have that ability to strengthen that with somebody who's in the cabinet of the Trump administration, I think is an important sign. And so that meeting and connection with Secretary Burgum is very important to me and important to the province. And as we continue to build that relationship, I think it'll be a good friendship for our two countries.
Okay, thank you. A follow-up to that, I want to know what will be your message to, most importantly, local businesses, right? What will be your message to them relating to the tariff, based on your experience, the feedback you've seen, from, a number of people you've met with, the union and everyone. So what will be your message for local business operators?
Well, I think we have what America needs and what America wants. When I talk about energy and critical minerals, that's needed to power the economy and for the defense sector. That is very important to the U.S. when we're talking about ag, there's so much of the Midwestern leaders who have influence with the current administration, and the fact that our ag industries are so interconnected and goods pass back and forth across the border. That was such a great common point to connect with many of the people we met with on. And so for Manitoba to have hydroelectricity, to have a strong agricultural industry, strong aerospace and manufacturing, to have so many important things at this crucial moment in the relationship, I think it just sends a sign that I hope reassures Manitobans, because of the things that are important to Americans right now, Manitoba has and can deliver on. And the fact that we're able to come here and get a good engagement with folks is a sign that we're going to be able to keep building this relationship. And of course, I recognize that there's a lot of uncertainty for folks. We're going to have to ride this wave, and of course, protecting jobs and protecting our economy every step of the way. But reassurance is what I'd like to share with people in Manitoba.
Up next from City TV, Mitch Wrinkles.
Premier, thanks for taking the time. I'm just wondering, we recently saw 5 former prime ministers sign an open letter urging Canadians to proudly fly the flag as the anniversary of the first flag raising approaches on Saturday. And I'm just wondering if you share that same call to action for Manitobans, or if you can react to the news in general.
100%. I think Flag Day is a great idea right now. It's been inspiring to see the level of patriotism in Canada right now. I fly a Canadian flag outside of my home, and I do that to acknowledge the sacrifice of the veterans. I do it to give thanks to the opportunity that I've been given by our great country. And I do it just as a point of pride, just because of who we are as our common identity. And so I encourage Manitobans and Canadians to fly that maple leaf and to stand for the anthem, and to, of course, shout True North while you're singing it too.
And just as a follow-up, while here in Manitoba, we're pushing Manitoba first and Canada first, while the U.S. is pushing U.S. first at the moment. How does that, benefit or, take away from the relationship that you're trying to grow when each country is focusing on themselves? Or do you think that could lead to, a different relationship than we're used to seeing?
Well, I think the relationship is evolving, and we're always going to be friends. We're always going to be neighbors. Like, the political winds of change may blow, but they're never going to be able to blow strong enough to change the geography and the fact that we're right next to the U.S. and the U.S. is right next to us. And when you look at our history together, our two nations working together, we defeated fascism. We defeated communism. We're that global light for human rights around the world, striving to be better at that every day and every year. And I think that while the relationship is going to continue to change and to evolve, and there's a lot of concern right now, I think when we take the long view, we just got to be calm and recognize that we're going to get through this, and we're going to continue to be friends with our American neighbors.
Moving now to the Free Press, Chris Kitching.
Hello, Mr. Premier. Was there any talk or any plans, I guess, at this stage for opening up a trade office within Washington?
Yeah, our government is working on establishing a permanent presence here in Washington, D.C. One of the important things that we heard is, hey, you folks have to come back, and we have to continue these conversations. And I think it was a mistake to close the Manitoba presence here under a previous government. But now, in this current moment, it makes sense for us to reestablish that presence. We're working on hiring a very talented individual to represent us. And we're hoping to be able to set them up in the Canadian Embassy. And, myself, other Manitoba leaders will be down here again to keep building these important relationships with people in the administration, people in the Congress. But we also need somebody here on the ground day in, day out, just to keep that visibility, keep that warm and hearty handshake extended, so that we can ensure that our interests are always going to be part of the conversation here in America too.
And I wanted to ask you, just for an article that my colleague is writing, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce had a report or a tracker, they're describing it as, which says that the Winnipeg Census metropolitan area is among the least vulnerable or least exposed Canadian cities to Trump's tariffs. Have you seen the report? Do you agree with that finding that Winnipeg would be one of the least exposed or least vulnerable cities to U.S. tariffs?
I actually had a chance to talk with some folks from the Canadian Chamber while we're down here in DC. They're down here taking meetings as well, making the case for Team Canada. And I think it's great when we see this moment of national unity. And you have the premiers of every province and territory standing together. You have labor, you have business, you have people from different walks of life here under the banner of the maple leaf, making that strong case. As the leader of the province of Manitoba, I have a responsibility to take people's jobs with the utmost of seriousness, to take our economy with the utmost of seriousness. And we want good times. We want more jobs. We want higher wages. We want more exports for Manitoba. And so the fact that we're here in DC, I think speaks to the importance of the relationship with the US, but we're also going to be looking at other markets in the future. And taking that provincial view, I got to think about the steelworker in Selkirk. And so that's why I'm down here meeting with the heads of the American United Steelworkers, the Canadian heads of the United Steelworkers, working together with them and people who represent the states that they work in on this side of the border, and trying to bring that unified approach to stand up for jobs in Selkirk, in Winnipeg, in every part of Manitoba, because we want everyone to succeed. And if we put the energy into this relationship, I think we'll be able to continue growing the opportunities for Manitoba.
Moving now to CTV, Jeff Keel.
Hi, Mr. Premier. You've mentioned it a couple times, ride the wave. Are you suggesting the signals you're getting from people down there? The tariffs are inevitable. It's just going to be a matter of how long, I guess. And, we know we've heard 25% and maybe some other numbers, but are you hearing it's an inevitability? We just have to get through it. And I think you've used that term as well.
No, actually, sorry. And thanks for the question, because it allows me to clarify. What I actually mean is, I think right now, and rightfully so, when there's so much uncertainty, people just want to rush for the sure thing. Like, what's the silver bullet that we can, pull out of the toolbox and have that take this uncertainty away? But when we're having our conversations down here, we're sharing the message about the conservation officers and other law enforcement at the border. It's very well received. The commitment to getting rid of fentanyl, very well received. The conversation about ag and electricity, very well received. Critical minerals, the mining that we do in Manitoba, it's all very well received. And so what I'm saying is that over the coming weeks and months, we're going to have to ride the wave in the sense of there's going to be curveballs thrown at us potentially. Maybe we're going to be asked to work together with the United States on certain things like border security. And we're just going to have to be able to be calm and to respond with that in a way that's consistent with our values as Manitobans, protects our jobs here at home, but also shows that we're serious about building this relationship and this friendship with America.
Thank you for clarifying that. I'm sure, I don't know if you've been very busy, but a lot of us are reporting on news from the Peace Gardens that they're worried that fewer people will visit because they've been getting some messages of some people saying, I don't want to visit there after what's happening. I'd like your reaction to that.
Well, I think the Peace Gardens are that physical symbol of the friendship between our two countries, and the fact that that's a long-standing relationship that's going to be there. Listen, I think it's great for us to shop Canadian, to buy local, to buy Manitoban, but the Peace Gardens is going to continue to be an important symbol for the connection between our two countries. And I think that will persist long after this current moment, and the uncertainty and the emotions that have been brought forward will last. And so the Peace Gardens are something that I think is a long-standing symbol of the connection between the US and Canada. And so, it's something that we should support.
Up next from the Canadian Press, Steve Lambert.
Oh, hi, Premier. Mr. Trump just had a press conference about an hour ago. He reiterated his comments about Canada becoming the 51st state. I'm just wondering, with the sort of charm offensive and the talks with people in Congress and people in his cabinet, can you persuade Trump himself? Because he doesn't seem to be a consensus builder, a listening person, if you will. He seems to have his mind made up, and there's been no sign that he's going to be swayed.
It's an important relationship for us to build. We all know Canada will never be the 51st state, but we are working on being a number one friend to the U.S. because of our proximity, because of the great economic relationship that we have. And so I think there's a way for us to continue to stand up for who we are as Canadians. Well, we put a renewed effort into strengthening the relationship here. And again, the fact that we're able to make the connection with Secretary Burgum today as part of this visit, I think is a great sign for that idea of relate before you negotiate. You know, former Premier Gary Dewar was always fond of saying relate before you negotiate. And, you know, it could very well be that we're heading for a review of the USMCA, the CUSMA deal, the North American Free Trade Deal, as it's sometimes referred to. But as we get there, it's important for us to understand and to listen to what our American friends are saying. It's also important for us to share our message about our jobs and our priorities. And that's what we did. And the fact that we're able to open some doors and shake some hands and to make those relationships, I think that all means good things for the future, including under the Trump administration.
And at this point, though, it's fair to say that Trump has given no indication that he's going to be swayed. And then even after yesterday's meeting, you had an official in the White House saying, hey, we haven't agreed that Canada is not going to be the 51st state. So, I mean, we're at this point, we're not even getting them to agree to recognize our sovereignty.
Well, it's not up to them, is it? It's up to us. And I think every Canadian agrees they're not going to be the 51st state. But when it comes to being a number one friend to the U.S., I think there's the opportunity for us to come down and build the relationship. And that's what we've been taking advantage of, is that window that we have right now to make our case, to share our perspective, to strengthen the relationships. Every time there's a new administration, there's a transition period. And we came down here at a very interesting moment. We're meeting with people in a new administration. We're meeting with Congress people who've just been sworn in. In many cases, the folks we're meeting with don't have their business cards yet. They've just moved into offices. They're still in the midst of a very active transition. And so for Manitoba and Canada to get in on the ground floor, I think is important. And I just want to remind folks and encourage people to reflect on the fact that this isn't just about the next 4 hours or the next 4 days. This is about the next 4 years. And so being here this week to get things onto a solid footing, a more positive footing, I think is a good step and hopefully provides reassurance to people in Manitoba and across Canada.
Okay, 2 reporters left. Up next from CBC Manitoba, Bart Keeves.
Mr. Premier, furthermore to what Steve Lambert just said, what makes you think negotiation will work when you are not dealing with what appears to be rational decision-making or logical or evidence-based decision-making? What makes you think anyone in Donald Trump's White House or Donald Trump himself cares what Canadian premiers have to say?
Well, we met with people in the Trump administration. And for me, the connection with Doug Burgum as the Secretary of the Interior is so important because he has a long-standing knowledge and connection to Manitoba. So, of course, I'm meeting him for the first time in his new capacity as a cabinet official in the Trump administration. But he's been to Manitoba many times. He knows where we are on the map. He knows what our province is all about. And that familiarity And the ability to connect on his priorities, to share our priorities, I think means that we have that in to the administration. And of course, it's going to have to be a situation where their interests align with our interests. And I think the thing that we need to keep in mind here is there's been a lot of talk, there's been a lot of attention, but we're not even at the negotiation yet. The people who will be doing the negotiation on the U.S. side, if we do move forward with the review of the USMCA, the CUSMA deal, they haven't even been confirmed yet. And so we are here setting the ground level foundation for what I think will be an outcome that works for Manitoba and Canada in the future. We're here building those relationships and forming those connections. And the fact that we're able to start this week, I think was a very good sign. And it was a trip that was successful.
Well, they're already in violation of CUSMA, and there's no indication they care about the rule of law, but I'll move on to a different topic. The Manitoba Nurses Union said today that this NDP government is no more transparent than the previous PC government when it comes to health information. What would you say to that?
I think we're doing a ton of great things in healthcare. We've confirmed 1,255 new frontline workers in the healthcare system. They're getting a great wage. They're getting more work-life balance. Everything that the unions have been asking for, we're delivering on, but most importantly, we're delivering for you, the patients. Listen, I think everybody knows that when it came to healthcare, it was going to take years to fix. And so we need to keep up a positive attitude. And I'd encourage our partners in the labor organizations to bring that positive attitude to bear, because this is a long-term project, and we gotta be persistent and resilient, and we gotta ensure that we keep this momentum moving forward, because we're hiring, we're paying people well, we're offering work-life balance, and we're staffing up in the areas of the healthcare system that need it. So let's keep working towards the common interest, which is making sure that patients get healthcare when they need them, and that we cut down on these wait times.
Closing things off today from the Globe and Mail, Timur Duran.
Thank you, Premier, for taking our questions. The first question I have for you is about Elon Musk and the meeting with the premiers that he apparently had. Could you give us some details about that? Just anything about what was discussed there, why it was important to meet with Mr. Musk?
Okay, I could talk about that a bit, but yeah, more to clarify, like we didn't really have a scheduled meeting with him. It's just a few of my colleagues and I bumped into him while we were at the White House. And so, you know, it's kind of, we see the important role that he has in the administration, and, you know, you're kind of tripping over each other on the White House grounds. And so just stopped in to say hello.
Okay. For my second question, Premier, I do also want to ask about the official meeting last night with Mr. Trump's Deputy Chief of Staff, James Blair, and Sergio Gore, Director of the Presidential Personnel Office. Could you tell us about their influence here and why it was important to meet with them? Particularly, I'm asking this because Mr. Blair was, you know, again, as he says, trolling Canada as the 51st state on Twitter. Is that a bad sign about these negotiations? Tell us a bit about that meeting and what you're making of his signs so far from it.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to answer that question. I can tell you in this meeting, again, keeping things at a high level, but in this meeting, you know, the comments that I made, I talked about energy, our baseload power, hydroelectricity exports that we have in Manitoba. That's such a great economic driver for us. I touched on agriculture, touched on the jobs perspective, and again, trying to make a jobs that works for both countries kind of argument. So that's kind of a lot of what I was bringing forward there. Of course, making the case about our investments on the border as well. And the fact that we were able to connect with these folks who work in the Trump White House, I think was an important sign. It's part of building the relationship. In political terms, I would say that these two gentlemen had perfect message discipline when it came to the Trump White House message. And so we're there to hear their perspectives, share our perspectives as Manitobans and Canadians. So I'm talking about electricity and agriculture and reminding them of what we've been doing at the border. And it's part of that bigger picture of building a relationship with the new administration and with the new folks in Congress. And it extends to meeting with a cabinet secretary today, Doug Burgum, very influential position that he occupies. He's also got the energy portfolio with one of the other cabinet officials. He was there at the Super Bowl with the president, or at least on Air Force One, from the looks of it. So again, just many points of contact, whether it's with the Trump White House staffers or people in the Trump cabinet like Doug Burgum, for us to be able to connect and to start sharing our perspectives, but really to build a relationship that we'll be able to come back to and now say, you know, when different issues arise, that we can revisit them based on a mutual understanding. I think that's an important and a wise approach for our country to take.
And that concludes the questions we have from Zoom. The floor is yours, sir, if you wanted any closing remarks before we shut things down.
Oh yeah, for sure. Maybe just in French. Notre visite ici à Washington était très importante pour appuyer les emplois et les Manitobains et Manitobaines. Nous avons rencontré le secrétaire Doug Burgum, qui est une personne qui connaît le Manitoba très bien. Et pour nous, soit avec lui, avec les syndicats, avec ceux qui sont dans le Sénat ou dans l'autre chambre, nous avons exigé et puis utiliser notre accès pour avancer les buts du Manitoba. Et puis, je pense que dans les prochaines semaines, mois et années, avec M. Trump en tant que président des États-Unis, nous aurons la capacité de continuer d'établir des relations avec les États-Unis pour promouvoir notre économie et nos emplois. Merci beaucoup. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, sir.